Have you ever been told that your music or your taste in movies or other media is bad for you? That's what we are going to analyze today. Okay, so to preface all this, what got me thinking about this video is I was listening to Mysterious Universe podcast, and one of the hosts, I don't remember which one because they both sound the same to me, one of them has cut out movies, TV, video games, things like that to focus more on reading and meditation and exercising. So he's kind of on this like media detox. And he said recently he was at the store and he saw this heavy metal CD and the cover of it just really intrigued him and he just felt the need to buy it, even though like he hasn't been listening to music and he's not a metalhead. So he buys a CD and listens to it or whatever, it's cool. And then that night he has a very violent dream. And he wakes up from the dream and that a song from that metal album is playing in his head. So naturally he is attributing this nightmare to the CD that he felt compelled to buy. So he attributed that negative experience to that band, that heavy metal media, which of course is traditionally of a darker subject matter. His whole thing lately is that you have to be careful what you dive into or indulge in, as he says, because he thinks it can have a psychic influence on you. In this episode, he also brought up an experiment they talked about a long time ago, and I remember that episode. It was an experiment that was conducted on plants, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who conducted this experiment or anything. So it's just like word of mouth. This experiment consisted of playing different kinds of music for different plants and seeing how each plant reacted. And apparently the plants that got blasted with heavy metal died. So he referenced that study again to emphasize that you have to be mindful of the media you consume because of the influence it could potentially have on you. He did say, and this is something I thought about too, that he suspects he was a little more vulnerable, a little more susceptible to the influence of the heavy metal band because he had been on a media detox. I mean, he was kind of a lightweight at this point. But I think it would also be safe to say it was a similar situation for those plants as well. The poor plant had never heard any music at all before, and you gave it heavy metal to start off with. But you know, in terms of like being a lightweight or whatever, when it comes to something like heavy metal, I think about how most of us probably who like extreme or dark or disturbing media, be it horror or music or video games or whatever, most likely none of us just started with death metal. None of us just started with splatter films. You know, it's something that you kind of like work your way to. There are gateway bands or stepping stones, things like that, where you gradually build up this taste for it. It's an acquired taste. And I think when we talk about acquired taste, we tend not to look at it in the sense that it also involves building up a tolerance. You have to build up a certain type of tolerance to acquire this taste. So yeah, most people aren't diving right into dark media from the get-go, which would make sense as to why heavy metal killed a plant and heavy metal gave the Mysterious Universe host bad dreams. So yes, there are people that are definitely more vulnerable to disturbing media simply because of lack of exposure. Another note I wanted to add in, and it was hard to figure out where to put it in this whole spiel, but I remember being in like high school and being at youth group, and them, the church, I'm in the Bible Belt, the church saying that it's best to avoid rock music, metal music, and horror movies. Just avoid those because those are all like negative, that will have a bad impact on you. They kind of conveyed that it's basically just dangerous territory to go into. But I just have like this knee-jerk response when people say that metal is bad for you or horror is bad for you or just dark media in general is something you shouldn't partake in. Because I'm like, it's not bad for me. It's the best thing ever for me. It is my lifeblood. I think it has a truly positive impact on me. And let's go back to the plants. I don't think every plant on earth would be killed by heavy metal. I think it's on a plant by plant basis, or perhaps even a species by species basis, but I really think it's a plant by plant basis, you know? Every plant is unique just like every person is unique. I just don't think we can say that all heavy metal would kill all plants on earth across the board equally. Similarly, we can't claim that all dark or extreme media will have the same impact on every person on earth. Meaning, we can't just say it's bad for you. I think there are people walking this earth who were born for this. Who were born for horror, for metal, for other extreme content, for dark art. But I do believe it can have a negative impact on other people. My point is that you can't just say it's bad. You know, every person is different. So this is a really interesting concept to consider. That the church, for example, is telling you you have to avoid these things that you feel naturally drawn to. That these things that make you feel so inspired inside are bad. I think perhaps it's more appropriate to say something along the lines of approach with caution, because it's not for everybody. It's important to be truthful to yourself, listen to your gut, you know, use discretion, discover your own tastes. Not everyone is gonna like certain things, but on the flip side, not everyone is going to be damaged by certain things. But part of what Mysterious Universe has been getting at lately is the dangers of dabbling in the paranormal, which isn't quite related, but hear me out. Their whole thing is kind of like the more you indulge in the paranormal, the more you like try to connect with it, try to speak to the dead or whatever, or gain forbidden knowledge, the more you're provoking it, inviting it to interact with you, the more susceptible you're making yourself. They're kind of saying that you're putting yourself at risk by inviting something potentially dangerous into your life. And again, like, I'm not sure you can just make a blanket statement like that. Another podcast, Where Did the Rope Go, did this several years ago. Their whole episode was like, does belief create a gateway to the paranormal? Does belief in the paranormal like invite it? A lot of people think that the more paranormal media you consume, even like the more ghost shows you watch or paranormal books you read or whatever, the more you're inviting it, the more stuff's gonna happen to you. Now, I am a testament that that is totally false. Okay, at least in my case. Again, every person is different, but for me, I've been consuming paranormal media for like 20 plus years. Sometimes it's like all I'm taking in, and that has never made a change in the rate of paranormal activity in my life, and the rate is 0. I have none. And watching paranormal media and even participating in ghost hunts or whatever has never changed that. I'm not saying it never would, but my point is that statement, that blanket statement, it's just a little bold. Okay, I've gone on ghost hunts, I played with a Ouija board, done rituals, all the stuff that would be like indulging in the dangerous paranormal, and I'm fine. Others have different stories to tell. Others have had different experiences. So again, this is a case-by-case basis thing. But all that to say, some people's lives, including my own, have been deeply and wonderfully impacted by dark art. I saw an article a couple of years ago, I'll see if I can find it, that said that horror fans took the pandemic much better than non-horror fans. It's like horror fans were almost more equipped to be able to handle the pandemic, like mentally. This could suggest that perhaps dark media can be beneficial for some people, despite its negative content. And it all comes down to taste as well. I mean, if I spent a day listening to a heavy metal album and then I had a nightmare that I was wreaking havoc, slaying the town, I might wake up and say, that was a cool dream. You know, I kind of like my nightmares. But not everyone does. It all comes down to taste. In conclusion, I think this whole issue is far more complex and does not allow us to be able to say dark media will have a negative impact on you. It's a very broad statement. It varies person to person, experience to experience. It's important to do what's right for you. I didn't elaborate too much, but I mean, obviously, the darker side of entertainment is where I like to hang out. And I think I'm one of the most positive and cheerful people that I know. So that's just my story. What do you guys think about this? Do let me know. What do you think about like the plant experiment? Have you ever been told your music or your shows or your movies are gonna rot your brain? What are your thoughts? I'm signing off now. See you next time.